Hello and welcome to SkySwitch University. In this unit, I want to cover merchant processor setup and payments in Rev. Now, if you're going to accept payments in Rev, then you have to have an integrated merchant processor, also known as a payment gateway. Now, we have three that are most commonly used, and by far Authorized.net is the one that is most used by our resellers. Now, if you notice here, I show that Authorized.net accepts credit card payments and eCheck ACH. And eCheck would be a one-time check payment, and then ACH would be your monthly auto pay out of a checking account. Okay, so we do highly recommend Authorized.net. Like I said, we have a lot of resellers that use them, and we've seen some great results from them. I'll point out their website here in a moment. And then Stripe is the second most used. Now, the thing with Stripe is it's credit cards only. They are not integrated with Rev in order to accept eCheck ACH. So it would be credit cards only, but if that's what you want to do, then Stripe would be a good option for you. The other one that's kind of in third place is IP Pay, and it's credit cards and eCheck ACH, and we do have some resellers using IP Pay. Now, I'm going to point out here in a moment in our knowledge base the document that will also show other integrated merchant processors. I point out these three because they're by far the most commonly used, but there are some others on the list, and I'll point those out. So when you're setting up your merchant processor account, you need to discuss that with them. Like, for example, if you're going to go with Authorized.net and you're going to accept credit cards and eCheck ACH, you need to have that conversation with them when you're setting up your merchant processor account. Now, let me go and show you. I'll show you these top three. Okay, here's Authorized.net. You can just go to their website, either sign up through their website or give them a call. I really recommend giving them a call. They're based out of Utah, and again, very large company, and they do a great deal of processing worldwide, and they have great support. Stripe being the second one, and again, Stripe only accepts credit card payments through Rev, and then the third being IP Pay. Okay, so this will give you three to compare, and again, these are the most commonly used with our resellers. Now, let me point out, if you go to our help, which is our knowledge base, and you search for merchant, you'll see this Rev.io approved merchant processors. Okay, so we give you a little heads up here, and basically things I've just told you. Number one, number two, number three, as far as the top three that are used. Now, again, here are the others that are on the list of approved or integrated merchant processors or payment gateways. I see Orbital on here, which is a Chase Payment Tech. And so USA Pay, ePay. So there are others, First Data, that we can work with. The only thing I would say about these others is we just haven't worked with them that much, and so the setup may take a little bit longer to get accomplished. Okay, now as I go back, I want to go on to the next screen here and then talk about payments in Rev. Now, you can certainly make manual payments in Rev, and you can make auto payments in Rev. Now, you can either set up a customer for auto pay, or the customer can set themselves up for auto pay if you give them Bill Center access. Now, we're going to talk further about payments and the Bill Center access later in the training. So for now, I'm just going to do some high-level mentions of these so that you can get in your mind the idea about payments in Rev, and then you can make a decision on whether you want to go with a merchant processor or not. Now, there's also a cash method, of course, in Rev. So if you get a check in the mail from a customer and you're going to deposit it in the bank, in that case, you would use this cash method. Another reason for using cash method is if, for example, you're going to continue to take payments in another system like QuickBooks or some other billing system that you've already been using and you already have merchant processor capability set up through that billing system. And in that case, you can certainly continue to take payments outside of Rev for your customer, and you can reflect the payment in Rev using the cash method, which would put the payment on the account and reflect it and show that it's been made. Okay, so now we will initially we'll have you in a manual payment mode, and we'll talk about manual mode. And we do have auto billing, and auto pay is part of auto billing, and you can certainly set up customers to auto pay, and we have resellers that do that, and they love it. All right, so these are the payment type methods. Okay, so what will we need in order to set up your merchant processor in Rev? Okay, with Authorize.net, what we will need is your API login and transaction key. Now, when you talk to them and through their portal, you'll be able to access and gain or receive your API login and transaction key. Now, you can email that to us if you have some security issues or thoughts about security. You can just wait until we do the live web conference training, and I can have you send that through the web conference chat, which would be a little more secure. And what we do is we get that to Rev, they put it in their system, and then you would be able to use that merchant processor or gateway in order to make payments through Rev and then through that payment gateway. So with Authorize.net, again, it's the API login and transaction key. With Stripe or with IP Pay, it's going to be the live secret publishable key. It's similar to the transaction key, API login and transaction key of the Authorize.net. What's happening there is there's a login basically via API from Rev, with your payment gateway, and that allows for that transaction, that information to flow back and forth from your payment gateway to Rev and vice versa. Okay, so that's what we'll need for setup. So I recommend reaching out and making a decision about your gateway or merchant processor if you don't have one, or if you already have your relationship with Authorize.net. Then we just need your API login and transaction key. All right, so pretty straightforward on the setup. Okay, so just to finish up, I'm going to show you just a few things about the payment processing or payment method or actions. So if you do go into your billing services link, which is your billing platform for your resellers, and let's look up a particular customer here. This is a demo site that we use. So let's look at this customer here. As we go into the customer, we will see that we have this payment button here at the upper left. Now, if you take a manual payment, you'll click on that payment button. And again, this is the manual way you'll take a payment. You'll want to notice that there's a method here: credit card, check, cash, wires in here as well. But so if you're going to, once you get your merchant processor set up or your payment gateway set up, then you'd be able to use the credit card option. If you get eCheck ACH set up, eCheck, then you would be able to use this payment method to put in the check information that you've received from your customer. Okay, and then also the cash method, if you just need to reflect a payment, like if you've received a check in the mail and you're going to actually deposit it in the bank, you would put the amount here in the reference note. You could put the check number and the date you received it. This agent selection here is never used. There is no agent capability, agent commission, or agent capability within this version of Rev, of the billing platform that you're using, which is called an agent reseller version. Okay, so back to the credit card. Credit card method, you'll see here, save payment information for future transactions. Okay, so when you make an initial credit card payment, like received it over the phone, or you've received the credit card information from your customer when you went out to do the install or whatever, you can take that payment in here and save payment information for future transactions, and it will then save a profile. Okay, and that profile will be here. Now and it'll save it so that the next time you take a payment, the account information will be there. Okay, and that's why that information is there. You'll need to make sure the billing address is correct, or you'll need to override the billing address just to make sure that you have the correct address, because if you don't, on credit cards, it'll probably reject the payment. The processor will, because the address didn't match, the zip code, etc. didn't match. Okay, so that's how you're manually going to take a payment. We do have the switch to manual post mode. I'll just point that out briefly here, that when you do that, it allows you to then select particular balances or invoices or line items, etc., or going with the oldest to the newest or newest to the oldest, so you can get specific on what you want this payment to be placed on, as far as invoice or charges. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that switch to manual post mode. Typically, this split payment over 2 accounts is never used, but that option is there as well. So as I return to customer, once a payment is made in Rev, it will be reflected on this payment history tab here in the middle of the screen to the right. So it's going to collect every time a payment is made. All right, so if it's a cash method, or if it's a credit card method or check, it'll state it here. It will tell you who took that payment, made that payment, and you'll see the payment history here on the payment history tab. Another thing here is the payment accounts tab. When we selected that option there to save payment information for future transactions, now typically you're not going to see this many here, but it's a demo account, so we get a little crazy in here, but it'll show the payment accounts that have been created on this customer or saved for future transactions. Okay, now this information is actually being saved by the merchant processor, the gateway. It's not being saved in Rev. It's actually being saved by Authorize.net or IPPay or Stripe, whomever is actually doing the merchant processing. It's just being reflected here in Rev. Okay, so that's a little bit on payments. The one thing I will leave also is, if you do not see your payment button, we don't turn on your payment button or these 2 tabs until you tell us what you want to do with your merchant processor, whether you want to move forward with a merchant processor or you want to not have a merchant processor at all. We just, it's a protective method, means, and we're waiting for you to tell us what you want to do. So once you tell us, we'll get that set up, and we'll open up these options, and you'll see these buttons. Now, we'll talk more about auto pay when we talk about auto billing. So that'll be in a subsequent training, and you'll see that in the training course. So that's merchant processor and payment options in Rev. If you have any questions, you can send those to onboarding@skyswitch.com. Thank you so much for your time.